My parents praised my sister's fake life while I quietly saved their real one. When truth hit, I left a note. Don't call until you apologize. I am a 23-year-old male, and I need to get this off my chest because it has been eating me alive for years. My entire life I've been a disappointment to my family. Not because I messed up, but because I selected a route that my parents believe is beneath them. I began repairing things as a teenager, beginning with minor chores around the house and progressing to assisting neighbors with their decks and fencing. By the age of 18, I was working for a local contractor who had taught me everything I knew about carpentry and home repair. 2 years later, I had acquired enough skills and connections to launch my own handyman firm. Here's the thing. I'm actually doing very well financially. Seriously, it's good money. I have regular clients who recommend me to their friends, no debt, a reliable truck that is paid off, and enough savings to buy a small house if I wanted to. I charge $75 per hour for most assignments, and I am booked many weeks in advance, do the math. But my parents respond as if I'm one step away from homelessness. My father keeps sending me job advertisements for real occupations, and my mother is constantly discussing night school choices as if I'm some loser who can't figure out what to do with his life. Meanwhile, my sister Anna, a 26-year-old woman, is the ideal child who can do no wrong. She attended Cornell, got a fancy-sounding marketing job in the city, and apparently lives a glamorous Instagram life with her investment banker partner. Every family supper is an Anna show. And then they look at me dissatisfied and say things like, "So, have you built any nice birdhouses lately?" As if what I do is a joke. The craziest part? 2 years ago, I overheard my parents screaming out over money. Dad's company had reduced his hours and they were overdue on their mortgage. They were quite concerned about losing the house I grew up in, which holds all of our family memories. I had enough money to aid them. I'd been saving almost everything I earned, but I knew they'd never accept it because, in their opinion, I'm simply fooling about with tools until I grow up and get a real job. So, I did something kind of crazy. I found out how to set up automatic mortgage payments from my company account that would appear to be coming from their retirement fund. For 2 years, I've been covertly paying their $1,750 monthly mortgage. That's more than $40,000 of my unsuccessful professional money supporting a house over their heads, while they applaud Anna for sending them photos of her business class flights. I never said anything out of pride or in the hope that they would notice I was doing well, but they never did. Dad still refers to me as my son, who's between careers, and Mom continues to give me advertisements for apartments that I could actually afford but are absolute dumps in comparison to where I could live if I wanted to. The worst are family gatherings. All of my aunts and uncles ask Anna about her fantastic life, but I get hanging in there questions as if I'm struggling. My cousin genuinely asked me if I needed help finding a steady job last Christmas, while I was working on a $220,000 kitchen remodel for the mayor's home. Anna eats it up. She has always been like Wei. She had always had straight A's, was class president, and was the epitome of a golden child. I was always the other one. I've attempted to show them how well I'm doing in subtle ways. I bought a very good watch. I occasionally take them out to supper and pay without making a big out of it. I bought Mom a luxury spa package for her birthday, but they think I'm being careless with my money, as if I should be saving every penny in case my passion fails. The point is, I'm not even mad that they like Anna. That has been my entire life. I am used to it. What kills me is that they honestly think I'm a loser when I'm practically saving their house from foreclosure. And yes, I know I should just tell them, but at this time, it would be too dramatic, and I honestly don't have the energy for it. Also, Anna is not a horrible person by any means. We actually got along well growing up. But a few months back I started seeing strange things with Anna. She's always been quite constant on social media, blogging about client meetings, office parties, weekend excursions with her boyfriend Ryan, and so on. Her posts were immediately erased. The first thing I noticed was that she stopped tagging locations. She used to check in at upscale restaurants, her office building, and airport lounges. Then she only posted photographs with vague phrases like lunch meeting with the team, but no specific location. Then I noticed something absolutely strange. She sent a snapshot of her office view, a skyline photograph that was supposed to be from their corporate headquarters, but I recognized it from a real estate website because I had been looking at flats in the neighborhood. It was an actual stock photo from a property listing. Around the same time, her visits home became less regular. When she did show up, she avoided queries about employment. She used to brag constantly about her clients and projects. But now she'd just say things were really busy or going great without providing any information, and then quickly shift the subject. Ryan, her partner, began to exhibit strange behavior as well. They've been dating for 3 years, and he used to be a confident guy who was always talking about investments and the market. He appeared to be quite stressed the last time they saw him. When Dad asked him about some stock recommendations, Ryan seemed embarrassed and stated he wasn't really allowed to discuss it, which was strange because he'd never stopped talking about it before. When I was getting a drink from the garage fridge, I overheard them arguing behind the house. Ryan was saying something like, "You can't keep doing this. It's getting out of control." And Anna was like, "Just give me a little more time." When they noticed me, they both fell silent and fake smiled as if nothing was happening. After that, I began to pay closer attention and notice additional details. Anna forgot her wallet every time we went out to dine. Her apparently brand new Audi had been in the shop for 3 months straight. She continued to use Mom's automobile when she visited. She used to arrive with shopping bags from designer stores. Now she was borrowing her mother's clothes and accessories. Whenever my parents approached her for assistance with even minor expenses, she'd make some excuse about how her accounts were tied up in investments, or she was between payment cycles. Her Instagram still displayed the opulent lifestyle, but I saw she was repeating previous photographs and simply posting them with new captions. The same workplace party photo, but with distinct "celebrating our new client" posts months apart. I attempted to convey to my folks that maybe not everything was ideal in Jesland. Nothing serious, such as, "Hey, have you noticed Anna seems stressed about work lately?" Or, "Isn't it weird her car has been in the shop so long?" Mom quickly shut it down, became protective, and said, "Not everyone wants to spend their life patching up broken cabinets like you. Real careers come with real stress, and real professionals don't spend months tinkering in a garage." "Thank you, Mom. Great conversation." Dad was a little better, but brushed it off with, "Your sister's in a high-pressure industry. She's doing important things, not just hammering nails." This from the guy whose hammering nails kid is covertly paying his mortgage. Meanwhile, Anna kept telling them about her upcoming promotion and how she was so close to obtaining a significant customer who would be a game changer. They ate it up, as always. The whole thing was making me nuts. Am I the only one seeing red flags here? Am I just jealous? I didn't want to believe my sister was lying about everything, but something just didn't make up. I decided to dig. Nothing stalkerish, just simple stuff. I searched up her company online to see if she was on the team page. She wasn't, which was strange given that she'd been there for years and was vying for a director post. I also Googled her boyfriend's investing firm. I found the company, but no Ryan was listed anywhere. I wasn't sure what to do with this information. Confront Anna? Tell my parents? I chose to wait and see what occurred. Perhaps I was reading too much into things. Plus, I had my own firm to operate, which was becoming increasingly busy. That is what is so wrong with this whole situation. While my parents were fixated on Anna's phony success, my true, legitimate business was thriving. I had to employ a helper because I couldn't do all of the work myself. I was making more money than ever before, but it didn't matter to them because it wasn't a fancy title or an office job. So I just kept doing my thing, letting this strange situation with my sister play out and secretly paying their mortgage. My friend Jake was the only one who knew about it, and he felt I was insane for not simply leaving and letting them deal with their own issues. Looking back, I think I should have listened to him. The genuine breaking point came approximately a month ago. This is when everything began to fall apart. And honestly, I'm still absorbing everything. I discovered that my parents had been asking Anna for money, not large sums, just a few hundred here and there for unforeseen needs. I've been discreetly covering their biggest bill the entire time, and they're hitting up Anna for cash on the side. What is the worst part? She was giving it to them, or so they thought. Mom let in that Anna had assisted them several times over the previous year. But the way she described it was strange. Anna would pledge to send the money, but there would be a difficulty with her bank. So she would pledge to send a check, but it would never appear. Then she'd say she'd pay a bill directly for them, but they'd still receive late notices. It was a strange loop of excuses that somehow my parents kept believing, And all the while they were telling me I needed to get my finances in order. The irony was too much. I started wondering what would happen if I simply stopped paying their mortgage. Will they finally have to confront reality? Would they understand Anna wasn't really assisting them? Or will they simply lose the house and blame me for not being successful enough to help them? That's when I realized I had to force the issue. I was weary of being the silent supporter who got no credit while Anna was hailed for doing nothing. I was weary of my folks looking down on my legitimate, thriving business. Most of all, I was weary of feeling insane for noticing what was clearly going on right in front of them. So I devised a plan, and man, I had no clue how quickly everything would disintegrate once I put it into action. It started only a few days later. I was in my workshop behind the house, finishing off a bespoke cabinet for a client, a large project that required my complete attention. I was in the zone, putting the last touches on it before delivery, when my mother strolled in unexpectedly. I knew there was something wrong right away. She remained there for a minute, watching me work, before launching into a lengthy diatribe about how bad the economy is and how everyone is feeling the pinch right now. I just kept working, hoping that she would finally reveal they had money troubles in full honesty. Stupid me. Instead of hitting me, Mom said, "So your father and I have been talking, and we think it would be good for you to start contributing to the household expenses. You know, paying rent while you're living here." I almost damaged the cabinet I was working on. I had to put down my tools and catch my breath, because I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I'd been paying their entire mortgage of $1,750 per month for the past 2 years, and now they wanted rent on top of that. I attempted to remain calm and explained that I was 23, running my own profitable business, and that instead of paying them rent, I should be saving for my own house. This is when she gave me the expression like I had slapped her or something. "We've supported you your whole life," she continued dramatically. "And this is how you repay us by refusing to help when we need it?" That's when I snapped. I questioned her why she hadn't asked Anna for rent money. Anna is the golden child, with her fancy corporate career and big city lifestyle. Why did I constantly have to step up? Mom's face altered quickly. She began babbling about how Anna had real costs and was advancing her career, whereas I was only playing with wood. Then she revealed that Anna had already loaned them money multiple times, which I knew was complete BS based on what I'd seen. I actually laughed. I couldn't help it. The entire thing was so absurd that there were only two options: laugh or strike the wall. This only aggravated my mother, who went into full attack mode. "You've always been jealous of your sister's success," she told me. "Maybe if you'd applied yourself in school instead of hanging around construction sites, you'd have made something of yourself too." I almost told her right then about the mortgage payments. The words were practically on the tip of my mouth, but something stopped me. Perhaps it was pride, or maybe I just wanted to see how far they'd go before reality hit them. So instead, I simply answered, "Fine. Ask Anna for the rent money. Let's see what happens." Mom stormed out, and the true horror began. The next 3 weeks were pure torture. It was as if my mother had made it her particular goal to prove that I was a loser who needed to straighten up. She mistakenly deleted some client emails from our shared family computer. These were legitimate work requests totaling thousands of dollars. When I approached her, she played dumb, claiming she was simply wiping out spam. Then our home internet abruptly quit working. Isn't this perfect timing? I handle all of my business's online client communications, procuring supplies, and sending invoices. Mom claimed there were technical troubles, but I saw her on the phone with the provider, effectively canceling our service. What is her excuse? "We need to cut unnecessary expenses." I had to use my phone data for a week until I could get a dedicated connection placed in my workshop. The sabotage continued to escalate. She planned this ambush as a family intervention for my lack of direction in life. She invited my father's brother, a corporate middle manager, to lecture me about wasting my talent. I had to leave halfway through to provide an estimate for a $155,000 deck restoration. The irony was utterly lost on them. Throughout this, my father remained fairly silent. He'd occasionally back Mom up, but I could tell he was concerned about how far she was taking it. One night, Dad came to my studio and uncomfortably explained that Mom was only concerned about my future. Meanwhile, Mom continued to push the rent issue, posting passive-aggressive messages on my door regarding my portion of the expenditures. It was just bizarre. I was actually paying for the roof over their heads while they treated me as a freeloader. The final straw was when Mom dug through my mail and opened a thank you note from a client. This lady was quite pleased with the built-ins I did for her home office and left a $200 cash gratuity. Mom took the money. Simply took it. When I approached her, she said it was to reimburse the groceries I had eaten. That's when I realized I needed to make some changes. I received a P.O. box the next day, so she couldn't intercept my mail anymore. Anna remained conveniently inaccessible throughout. She had ceased returning family calls on a regular basis, and when she did speak with our parents, it was usually at a good time she had planned in advance. Mom kept making excuses for her, saying she was too busy with her huge project or traveling for work. I was simply sitting there, watching the entire spectacle, waiting for reality to catch up with everyone. Part of me felt guilty, knowing what was likely to happen, but another part of me was simply tired of being the only one living in the real world. The odd thing is, despite all of this stress, my business was doing better than ever. I had scored numerous high-end projects, including a complete built-in entertainment center for a doctor's home worth approximately $122,000. I was turning down jobs because I couldn't keep up with the demand. I was even considering hiring a full-time staff, but none of this registered with my parents. For them, I was still simply their son, playing with power tools in the garage. No matter what I accomplished, it would never compare to Anna's fabricated business success. I started seriously considering moving out. I had been putting it off due to the circumstances, but I was at my breaking point. I couldn't continue living under the same roof with individuals who had so little regard for me and what I'd accomplished. Plus, I was concerned about what would happen if I confronted them about their mortgage payments. Would they be thankful, humiliated, or enraged that I tricked them? Knowing my parents, especially my mother, they'd make me the bad person, despite the fact that I'd kept them out of foreclosure for years. I started looking at apartments to see what was available. I found a few properties that would provide me enough space to live and possibly even a small workshop area. I could afford any of them, but something was holding me back. Maybe I was worried about what would happen if I stopped paying my parents' mortgage. Perhaps it was only the hope that one day they would recognize me for who I truly was. All of this was starting to interfere with my mind. I've always been the type of guy that puts his head down and solves issues. When someone is unreasonable, I usually ignore them and go about my business. But this was different. This was my family aggressively attempting to bring me down when I was physically providing a roof over their heads. I began losing sleep, waking up at 3 a.m., repeating my mother's deception and questioning whether I was the problem for refusing to pay rent on top of the mortgage. Work suffered. I made thoughtless blunders, cut wood incorrectly, and missed a client, all of which demonstrated that I was not on top of my game. My friend Jake sensed something was wrong when we were working on a large deck job together. He kept asking if I was okay, saying I seemed to be somewhere else mentally. I finally broke down and told him everything. The mortgage payments, my parents' continual criticism, my mother's sabotage attempts, etc. He was shocked. I dropped my jaw to the floor, stunned. "Dude," he said, "this is seriously messed up. Why are you still living there? Why are you still paying their bills? They're treating you like garbage." I didn't have a suitable response. I'm guessing it was partly guilt. They're still my parents, and the prospect of them losing their home made me feel terrible. But to be honest, part of me hoped they'd finally see me for who I truly was. A successful guy who had built something meaningful, rather than the loser they believed I was. Jake advised me I had to either confront them about the mortgage or leave and let them deal with the repercussions of their actions. He was correct, but something inside of me refused to choose either option, so I just kept living in this strange limbo, attempting to dodge my mother's sabotage while conducting my business and secretly paying their debts. The situation at home just got worse. Mom began cleaning my workshop without my consent, which meant that my tools were placed in strange locations and my project plans went missing. Dad continued pounding me with guilt trips about family duty and how I needed to do more. It was like living with individuals who refused to acknowledge reality. Mom even went so far as to inform family and friends that I was going through a difficult time and would be staying at home until I recovered. This came back to me when a family friend's son contacted me and offered me a job with his moving firm. I had to clumsily explain that I already ran a successful firm and was not searching for work. What's the craziest part? My parents recognized all the signs of my achievement but twisted them into negativity. When I purchased a new truck for work as a required business investment, Mom said I was being flashy and should save my money. When people rang the house phone seeking for me, Dad would question if they were actual jobs or simply minor repairs. It was as if they saw me as a failure, and no amount of evidence could change that. Meanwhile, Anna remained the golden child, despite all of the red flags in her environment. Mom kept bringing her up. Anna is working such long hours that she may be promoted to vice president, and Anna and Ryan are looking at beachfront property, all while Anna herself becomes increasingly scarce and elusive. I tried to tune everything out and concentrate on my task. I began taking jobs farther away from home to give myself an excuse to be gone for the majority of the day. I stored my invoices and company documentation in a fireproof safe that I purchased after catching Mom snooping. I began backing up all of my client contacts and project information to the cloud in case she mistakenly erased additional emails. Essentially, I was living as if I were under siege in my own home. Every morning, I would wake up wondering what new sabotage effort I would face that day. The matter escalated when I overheard my mother on the phone with one of her friends, discussing her concerns about my financial irresponsibility and inability to manage money. This from the woman whose mortgage I covertly paid because she and her father couldn't afford it. The irony was so thick it could be sliced with a saw. Around this time I observed that my parents were becoming increasingly concerned about hearing from Anna. Mom contacted her virtually every day, but Anna was becoming increasingly unresponsive. When she did speak with them, it was always brief and imprecise. She can't talk right now. I'm in a meeting and I'm quite busy with this assignment. I'll contact you back next week. I could see anxiety creeping into Mom's eyes, despite her refusal to believe anything was wrong with her precious kid. When Mom wasn't present, Dad began making statements like, "I wonder how Anna is really doing." It was as if they were finally noticing what I had been seeing for months but couldn't quite accept it to themselves. Then came the day when Mom attempted to access my financial accounts. I had left my laptop open while I went to have lunch and returned to find her rapidly navigating through my browser. She said she was only checking the weather, but I saw my bank's website and the recently closed tabs. That was the last straw. I couldn't continue living like way. I began making real plans to move out. I looked into rentals and storage possibilities for my equipment and stuff and located a reasonable spot around 20 minutes away. It wasn't luxurious, but it did have a tiny attached garage that I could use as a workshop as well as enough space to comfortably live. I was about to put down a deposit when everything collapsed at once. It was Tuesday evening. I was in my workshop finishing off some paperwork when my mother's phone rang. I could see she assumed it was Anna because of her excited, "Hi, honey." I didn't pay much attention until I heard her voice shift from delight to perplexity, then dread. I moved closer to the door so that I could hear better. Mom was talking to Anna's boyfriend Ryan, who appeared to be divulging every secret Anna had kept. "That can't be right," Mom repeated. "There must be some mistake. Anna would never do something like that." I couldn't hear Ryan's side of the discussion, but based on Mom's comments, he was painting a completely different picture of Anna's life than the one she'd been presenting us. When Mom eventually hung up, she sat there, staring at her phone as if in astonishment. Her hands shook. She looked up to see me standing in the doorway, observing her. "That was Ryan," she explained, her voice barely above a whisper. "He and Anna broke up. He says Anna lost her job over a year ago. He says she's been lying to everyone." I did not say anything. What can I say? "I told you so." Sounded cruel in that moment, despite everything she had put me through. "He says she's been pretending to go to work every day, that she was fired for lying on her resume, that she's been maxing out credit cards to keep up appearances, that she's been—" Mom couldn't even complete the sentence. She began crying. I just stood there watching the house of cards finally fall. All of my suspicions, which I had had for months, were verified, and I felt absolutely no satisfaction. Just a strange mix of anguish for my sister and rage that it had taken so long for the truth to come out. Dad arrived home about an hour later, and Mom relayed the news to him. He didn't believe it at first and kept saying, "Ryan must be lying, because Anna would never do such a thing." But I could tell from the look in his eyes that he knew it was real. All of the discrepancies in Anna's stories immediately made sense. They stayed until late that night, trying to phone Anna repeatedly. She never picked up. They left one message after another, each more frantic than the last. "Please call us back. We just want to know you're okay. Whatever's happening, we can figure it out together." I went to bed at midnight, leaving them trying to contact her. As I laid there staring at the ceiling, I pondered if this would affect anything between us. Would they eventually see that I was not the family failure after all? Or will they find a way to blame me for not alerting them about Anna sooner? I didn't have to wonder too long. The following morning, everything changed. I arrived downstairs to find my mother seated at the kitchen table, still dressed in yesterday's clothing and with puffy eyes from sobbing. Dad was pacing around the living room, phone close to his ear, leaving what must have been his 20th voicemail to Anna. Initially, neither of them recognized me. They seemed to be trapped in a bubble of shock, unable to see anything outside of it. I made some coffee and sat across from Mom, unsure what to say. What would you say to someone who has just had their entire worldview shattered? Finally, Mom looked up at me. Her face was distinctive in some way. The typical judgment and disappointment were vanished, replaced by something I had rarely seen directed at me: desperation. "We need your help," she replied simply. Just the truth. They were in distress, and I was their final resort. She began telling me about their financial position, how Dad's pension was not what they expected, how medical bills had built up following his knee surgery 2 years earlier, and how they had been barely surviving financially for years. "Anna has been helping us," she continued, her voice shaking. Or at least, we thought she was. It turned out that my parents had been constantly pestering Anna for money for the past year. Small amounts at first, a couple hundred here and there for unforeseen needs, then greater sums when larger bills arrived, and Anna had allegedly assisted them by transferring money or paying bills directly. But suddenly, they were learning that none of that was true. The invoices she claimed to have paid remained overdue. The transfers she had promised never materialized. It was all a deception to maintain her image as the prosperous daughter, despite the fact that she was drowning in debt. "We're going to lose the house," Mom stated, her voice lifeless. "The retirement fund we've been using for the mortgage. It's empty. We got a notice from the bank yesterday. We're 3 months behind." I simply stared at her, attempting to understand what she was saying. 3 months behind? That's not possible. I've been making those payments religiously for 2 years. "That's not right," I said. "The mortgage is current. It's paid every month." Mom seemed puzzled. "How would you know that?" And there it was. The moment of truth I'd been dreading and waiting for. I took a deep breath. "Because I've been paying for it," I explained, "for the past 2 years, every month from my business account." Mom's expression was something I'll never forget. Complete and total shock. Her mouth hung open. Dad had strolled back into the kitchen and dropped his phone. Mom muttered, "What are you talking about?" So I told them everything. How I overheard them fretting about losing their home 2 years ago. How I would set up the automatic payments to appear to be from their retirement account. How I had been discreetly providing a roof over their heads while they continued to treat me as a failure. "Why didn't you tell us?" Dad said, his voice unusually quiet. "Would you have accepted help from me?" I questioned you. "From your disappointment son with his hobby job? Or would you have been too proud to take money from someone you think is a loser?" They did not have an explanation for that. We all knew the truth. "So all this time," Mom started, then paused. I could see her mentally calculating how much money I had paid, which was more than $40,000 at this time. "Why did you do it?" she finally inquired. "Because it's our family home," was my response. "Because I didn't want you to lose it. Because despite everything, you're still my parents." Mom began crying again, but they were not the same tears as before. These were complex tears. "We had no idea you were—" Dad paused. "Successful," I answered. "Yeah, I know. You've both made that very clear." The talk that ensued was tight and unpleasant. Mom continued telling me how pleased she was of me and how she had always seen my potential. Dad mentioned how delighted he was with my business sense. However, neither of them genuinely apologized for how they treated me. Instead, they switched to discussing what we were going to do about Anna, how we needed to band together as a family to help her, and how they knew I'd want to aid my sister when she showed here. It was surreal. Even after discovering that I had been financially supporting them for years while Anna had been lying to them, they continued to prioritize her. It was as if they were physically incapable of viewing me as equal to her, let alone admitting that I had been the responsible party all along. I sat there listening to them talk about Anna's troubles, how we needed to be sympathetic when she got home, and how she was most likely just overwhelmed by her high-pressure job. They were already constructing excuses for her, crafting a story in which she was not a liar but a victim of circumstance. And me? I was still only the backup plan, a safety net, the one who would continue to pay the bills while they concentrated their emotional attention on Anna. That's when I knew nothing will ever change. I could pay their mortgage for 20 years, start $1 million business, and get the President's Workmanship Award, but I'd still be their second-best child. Anna could lie, cheat, and vanish, and they'd still make excuses for her. I informed them that I would continue to pay the mortgage for the time being because I did not want them to lose their home. But I also informed them that things needed to change. I was done being the family's punching bag. I finished deleting and opening my emails. I'm done being lectured about responsibility by folks who can't pay their own expenses. They nodded and agreed with everything, but I could see they weren't actually listening. They were too preoccupied with the Anna drama, too concerned about their golden kid, to fully comprehend what I was saying. Most of all, I felt entrapped. I was still living under their roof, paying their mortgage, trapped in this dysfunctional family dynamic, and I honestly didn't know how to get out. Anna resurfaced 3 days later. She didn't come home, instead calling Mom and wailing about how everything had fallen apart. She acknowledged to losing her job, incurring credit card debt, and lying about her accomplishments. But she framed everything as something that occurred to her, rather as something she did. She was a victim of a poisonous work atmosphere and unscrupulous loan methods, and my parents were completely taken in. Mom spent hours on the phone with her, consoled her, and assured her that everything would be fine and that they understood. Dad began investigating credit counseling options and discussing how they may help Anna get back on her feet. Meanwhile, no one noted the more than $40,000 I had contributed to keep us all housed. No one noticed that while Anna was digging herself into a hole of lies and debt, I was running a genuine business and supporting the family. It felt as if we were back where we started, with Anna as the center of attention and me as an afterthought. That's when I realized I needed to get out. Not only did I physically leave the house, but I also emotionally distanced myself from this toxic dynamic. I had to accept that my parents would never see me clearly, would never recognize what I'd accomplished, and would never treat me equally with Anna. The next day, after speaking with Jake, who gave me confidence, I located an apartment across town and paid a deposit. It had a tiny garage space that would be useful for my business until I could find a suitable workshop. I moved out the following weekend while my folks attended a bank meeting. I did not inform them ahead. I knew they'd attempt to talk me out of it, make me feel bad, or find a way to ruin my plans. I left a note indicating that I would make the mortgage payment for another month to give them time to straighten things out. After that, they were on their own. I also left copies of all the mortgage payments I'd made in the previous 2 years, as well as a breakdown of how much money I had saved them. At the bottom, I wrote, "Now you know which child was actually successful. Don't contact me until you're ready to apologize for how you've treated me." The fallout was predictable. Mom called me 50 times, leaving sobbing voicemails about how they didn't mean it, how they'd always loved me, and how they were simply trying to push me to reach my full potential. Dad texted me stating they were sorry if I felt unappreciated, which is the usual non-apology that blames me for my feelings rather than them for their behavior. Anna finally arrived at our parents' place a week after I moved out. According to family members, she is telling everyone that she suffered a nervous breakdown due to working too hard and is taking time to rethink her priorities. She's entirely changed the story so that she's the victim rather than the liar. Classic Anna, turning her big failure into some great quest of self-discovery. My business is doing quite well. I hired my first full-time employee last month to assist with the burden. I have my own apartment where no one can interfere with my belongings or talk down to me. And, for the first time in my life, I'm not carrying the burden of proving myself to people who are determined to regard me as a failure. So here I am, the family disappointment, doing well on my own. It turns out that being a disappointment is very liberating once you stop caring about disappointing people who never appreciated you. Anyway, if there's a lesson here, I'd say this. Success isn't defined by your job title, college degree, or beautiful apartment. It's about creating something genuine and lasting, whether it's a business, relationships, or simply a life you don't have to lie about. By that standard, I had always been the successful one.